So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to build a shelter with little to no tools at hand, using just our survival kit and our belt knife at best. So it's called a debris shelter. It's a variation of the lean-to that provides you more insulation. So we're going to cover that right now. So first thing you do, we're going to select a site big enough for your shelter. So your wingspan is as long as you are tall, from fingertip to fingertip. I need to find 2 trees that are at least that wide apart. So I came up here, I have these trees here. They're just long enough. I can double check by laying down in between them, making sure I have enough room. So we know that's good. Next, we're going to select a main pole. So we're going to find a tree that's strong enough that we can wedge and long enough that we can wedge from here to here. The purpose of a survival shelter is to keep it as small as possible. You want enough room to fit in, but not much more than that, or else you're heating up a bunch of air that you don't need to. The bigger the shelter, the more energy it's going to take to heat. So we're going to want, like I said, we're going to keep this small. So we're going to wedge, we're going to make it about waist height or just below, and it's going to go down to the root of this tree. So you're going to look around for, since you don't have your saw with you or any tools, we're going to look around for a tree that first off we can make that main pole. At the same time, we're also considering what we can use for firewood and smaller branches that we can break to make the frame for this. So I come up to a tree like this, it's dead. It's going to be easy enough for me to pull down, but it's not strong enough to hold the weight of the leaves and boughs we're going to be putting on here. But what we can do, we'll bring it down, and we can use this to break up into the ribbing. So we want something a little thicker. It's got to be able to sustain some weight. This one might be a better option. Now you're going to watch out when you're pulling this down. You're not going to wave it wildly, because the top of those branches are going to be coming down and you don't want them coming on your head. So we're just going to work that down. So we talked about that your wingspan. You're going to need longer than that because you're running at an angle. So as we can see, this one is a little thicker. It's not totally straight, but this will work for our main pole. So we have a few different options of breaking this. One that I'm going to use, I'm going to back it up. I am going to put it between 2 trees, like so. You can see I'm just putting the end through there. Now this area is almost too congested for this method, but we will get it. Oh, I don't think we're going to get that one there. So let's break it off a little longer than we need. Then we can break it to size once we haul it back over to our site we've selected. So I can measure it here. I'm going to measure it higher, and then it will get tighter as I push down on it. So we need it a little longer. Here we have a decent set of trees for breaking. Use leverage to our advantage. We'll wedge it in here. Still a hair too long. I'm going to grab close, or else I'm going to find a weak spot and break it not where I want it. There we go. I'm going to test again. Is this long enough that I can lay in it? It's not terrible, it could be a little longer, but that's basically the length of the trees we're going to be working on. So I can lay in here fairly comfortably and stay warm with a fire out in front of the shelter. Here's the next thing you're going to want to make sure that you know it's wedged in and secure. There we go. That's even better. I can lay fully extended. Now, odds are you're going to want to curl up a little bit too. The next thing we're going to do, we have our branches that we brought in, and we're going to start breaking them. We can gather them. These don't have to be very, and we're going to find them so they will sit wide enough you can get your body underneath the shelter if it starts to rain. So we're going to set them at about a 35 to 40 degree angle off the back of these. So I talked earlier about wedging your branch or whatever bough you're trying to break in between two trees. The reason we do this, number one, it's safer. You're not swinging it like a baseball bat against a tree. You're having stuff flying. You don't know where it's going to break. It's more controlled. You can control where it's going to break. Number two, it's less damaging to a live tree. If you sit there and whack on the same tree, you're going to start ripping the bark off, and eventually that tree is going to die. One other thing I forgot to mention, we also looked up when we picked our area, it was free and clear of boughs to avoid for our fire making. And number two, it's free of widow makers. There's no dead trees above us that are going to fall over in the wind. All of a sudden we get a big windstorm at night and it knocks a dead tree off onto us and chaos ensues. So we're going to leave that alone. So we're going to get some warrants here to show us how to break this branch there. Nice and controlled. It broke exactly on that tree, whereas if he had taken it and swung it, there's no telling where it might have actually broken off. Get our camera person, the lovely Willow, our assistant, to come around, just looking. I'm double checking, so I made sure that this is deep enough that I can get my whole body inside my shelter. So if she goes around the other side and looks down at me, you can see my whole body is being protected from any rainfall because I'm inside my shelter. I'm not making a lot of extra room, but I'm making enough room I can be in there and warming up that space.